Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Inna alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulillah. Ameen Rabbil Alameen. Assalamu alaikum, my dear brothers and sisters. Alright, okay, inshallah. Today's class is about the fundamentals of Tawheed, inshallah. And we're going to be discussing this through Surah Al-Ikhlaas. And just to quote Shaykh Ibn Taymiyyah, who is, mashallah, my favorite scholar, he once said that the perfection of Tawheed is found when there remains nothing in the heart except Allah. Okay, and the reason why I invested quite a lot of time on this, so we can cover a broad range of topics within Tawheed, is because the first and most important point when it comes to developing yourself spiritually is correcting your belief in Allah, right? All the prophets, the first thing that they started with is correcting Tawheed, because so many people deviated. Polytheism was there, worshipping idols, worshipping fire, all these sort of things were taking place. And the first thing that they wanted to propagate was Tawheed. Okay? So this is a very, very important topic, inshallah. So if you do have any questions, do make sure that you let me know so we can try and clarify everything within the 2 hours we have, inshallah. Yes? Alright. So before, inshallah, we actually make a proper start, I want everyone just to do a little exercise. Everyone has a minute, right? Okay. Just think of 2-3 names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay. And there's a reason why, because we're going to go through these later on, inshallah. We're going to use some of these points. So I'll give you 1 minute just to find some names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There are 99 of them, right? Okay, from the authentic Hadith and Quran. So you have 1 minute. Go. Fantastic. Only one person is writing. What's that? Okay. Sorry? We know. Oh, you already know. Okay, mashallah. Then that's okay. It's okay. So, brothers, okay. One name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Put your hand up, please. Khogar. Al-Qahar. What does that mean?
I don't read English, but...
Okay. Okay. Something that everyone knows. Any other? Yes? Hanur? As-Sabur. Yes. Okay. The most patient. Well done. You get your candy. Sisters, one name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ar-Rahim, yes, well done. You get candy at the back, excellent. Sorry, they're caramel this time. This brother chose it, unfortunately. Okay, yes, Rashid? Ar-Rahman, yes, excellent. That was a copy from, Ar-Rahim pretty much, but okay, well done. Okay, khalas, inshallah. So please, oh yeah, okay, Abdullah, yeah? Al-Hakim, yes, well done, excellent. Okay, that's more than enough candies I can spare at the moment. Khalas. So just keep those 4 names in the back of your head, because inshallah we'll be using them to demonstrate some examples and to clarify some misconceptions which people may have about the names and how they can be applied to people, etc. Yeah? Okay, so what the hell is going on here? Okay, yeah, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Can somebody please recite the surah, inshallah? Hunayn, you want to do it?
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد.
Jazakallah. Bismillah. Furqan, can you please read the English translation? Bismillah.
Say is Allah, He is one, Allah is eternal, He is neither begets nor nor is born, nor is there to Him any
equivalent, yeah. Okay, Jazakallah khair, brothers and sisters. Can everyone read at the back, yeah? Everyone? Okay, inshallah. So we're just gonna understand the background of the surah before we start off. We're just gonna follow that tradition template, inshallah. Okay. So the first few things I want to talk about is its virtues, and I think many of you already know about it, but just to quickly brief over, Ibn Kathir mentions 2 different hadiths. Okay. It says here, Amr bint Abdurrahman, who used to stay in the apartment of Aisha, the wife of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Aisha said, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam sent a man as the commander of a war expedition, and he used to lead his companions in prayer with the recitation of the Quran, and he would complete his recitation with the recitation of say He is Allah one. So Qul huwa Allahu ahad. He'd always recite with this. So when they returned and they mentioned this to the Prophet ﷺ, and he said, ask him, why does he do that? So they asked him, and he said, because it is the description of Ar-Rahman and I love to recite it. So the Prophet ﷺ, he replied, inform him that Allah the Most High loves him. Okay. So this is a means of getting closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And just another one, I prefer this because this is very, very touching for me, right? In Sahih al-Bukhari, this is one hadith that's narrated by Anas anhu. A man from the Ansar used to lead the people in prayer in the masjid of Quba. Whenever he began a surah in the recitation of the prayer that he was leading them, he would start by reciting, Qul huwallahu ahad, until he completed the entire surah. Then he would recite another surah along with it. And he used to do this in every rak'ah. So his companions spoke to him about this, saying, verily you begin the prayer with this surah. Then you think that it is not sufficient for you unless you recite another surah as well. So you should either recite it or leave it and recite another surah instead. The man replied, I will not leave it off. If you want me to continue leading you in prayer, I will do this. And if you all do not like it, I will leave you. And I will stop leading you in salah. Yeah? They used to consider him as the best of them to lead them in prayer, and they did not want anyone else to lead other than him. So when the Prophet Muhammad came, they informed him of this information. He said, "Oh, so and so, what prevents you from doing what your companions are commanding you to do? And what makes you adhere to the recitation of this surah in every rak'ah?" Now listen to this. Okay, the man said, "Verily I love it." And the Prophet ﷺ replied. He said, "Your love of it will cause you to enter paradise." Right? So understand that this is a very heavy surah, okay, in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, okay? This is the fundamental concept of Islam. And inshallah, we need to embody this in our lives, yeah? Another thing that I want to mention is that its value in the Quran. I'm pretty sure you all must have heard of this, okay? The Prophet ﷺ said, "By He in whose hand my soul, verily it is equivalent to a third of the Quran." Yani the Surah Al-Ikhlas is worth equivalent to a third of the Quran, yeah? And there's another hadith variation where the Messenger said to his companions, "Is one of you not able to recite a third of the Quran in a single night?" This was something that was difficult for them, and they said, "Which of us is able to do that, O Messenger of Allah?" So he ﷺ replied, "Allah is one, As-Samad is a third of the Quran." Okay? And I just found it very interesting that one of the Mufassir, okay, in Tafhim al-Quran, which is written by Shaykh Sayyid al-Mawdudi, he did some fantastic commentary on this specific hadith. And he wanted to try and explain why is this specific surah equivalent to a third of the Quran. And from his own study and his interpretation of the Quran, the Quran can be divided into three main topics. Can anybody guess what they are? For a candy. Yeah, okay, this is a good, interesting one. Three interesting topics for a candy. Hunayn.
One is the stories of the prophets.
Okay.
And one is the concept of Tawheed.
Yeah.
And the last one is the action that you have to do, laws.
Oh, two-thirds correct. Anybody? Can anybody think of else? Sisters? No one? Brothers? Anybody else?
Stories.
So he got okay, apostleship, so the prophethood, okay, specifically Prophet of Prophet ﷺ. There's belief in Allah. What is the last one? Huh? No, not Tawheed. Belief in Allah is Tawheed. What is the last one? Think about it. What did yani?
Belief in the last day.
Yes, believe in the akhirah. Well done. Excellent. Okay, excellent. So he suggested, okay, that the Quran actually can be divided into three main parts, and these were the three most important messages that the Prophet ﷺ brought to the people of Mecca and Medina and to the world. Yeah, he said that pretty much it's Allah subhanahu wa taala, belief in the apostleship of the Prophet ﷺ and all the other prophets before him, and belief in the akhirah. And he said because this surah covers the entire concept of Tawheed, it's equivalent to the third of the Quran. And this is just an interpretation, and this is not the truth. So I just wanted to mention that interesting point. Yeah. Now, inshallah, we're gonna just see another little hadith that mentions it as a cure. Okay, that Surah Al-Ikhlas is actually a cure, right? And this is mentioned in in Ibn Kathir, and it says, right? Sorry, 1 second. Wrong page. Yes, Al-Bukhari, okay, rahimahullah, he's recorded from Aisha that whenever the Prophet ﷺ would go to bed every night, he would put his palms together and blow into them. Then he would recite into them his palms, say He is Allah one, yani Qul huwallahu ahad, yeah? And then he would wipe whatever he was able to of his body with his palms. He would then begin wiping his head and face with them in front of part of his body. He would do this wiping 3 times, okay? And he sought this as a cure. With the Surah Al-Ikhlas and Surah Al-Nas, yeah? I think everyone knows this is a standard procedure, yeah? So these are some of the virtues which the Surah Al-Ikhlas brings out from the hadith which we've recited, yeah? Now the next thing I wanted to talk about was the cause of revelation, okay? Because this is actually a very important concept. Now, when I was doing the reading for the Tafsir, there's actually a debate between scholars whether this is a Madani surah or a Makki surah, and they're, both have very strong arguments here and there. I'll just give you one of them. For example, in Mecca, okay, one of the Quraysh members asked the Prophet ﷺ, tell us the ancestry of your Lord. Tell us the ancestry, the lineage of your Lord. Because in those days, you had to imagine, what were their gods made out of? Stones, stones, gold, all these basic materials, okay? And they believed this was the father of that was the father of this, and they whole had an incested, stupid mix or something, yes? So this is the sort of questions they had. What's the ancestry of your Lord? And then, so this is one, depiction from Mecca. One depiction from Medina, the Jews asked Prophet ﷺ, what is your Lord like so that we may believe in you? Allah in the Torah has sent down His description. Kindly tell us of what He is made. What is His sex, whether He is made from gold, copper, brass, iron or silver, and whether He eats and drinks. Also tell us from whom He has inherited the world and who will inherit after Him. Okay? So these are two different opinions which the Mufassirs. I just want to shed light on both of them. Now, the stronger argument is that it's a Makki surah, and the reason why is because the style of the surah is such that it's very immediate, very sharp, and it's pretty much engraved in people. It catches people's attention. Whereas Madani surahs are tended mainly to be around, social concepts, how to live a society, engage in the community, stuff like that. Does that make sense to everyone? Yeah? There's a very clear rhythm between the difference of a Makki surah and a Madani surah. Does anyone understand that difference? Yeah. Another thing why a strong evidence is why this was revealed in Mecca. Okay, they were both revealed maybe at different times, maybe multiple times. But the reason why it was initially revealed in Mecca, they believe, is that because I'm pretty sure you all have heard the story of Hamza, Bilal radiallahu anhu, when he was tortured with the stones. And what did he keep reciting back to them? Ahad, Ahad. And Ahad is in this surah. Yeah? Does that make sense to everyone? Any questions about this specific issue? Sisters at the back, any questions? Khalas. Okay, now inshallah we can start off with the actual tafsir of the surah, yeah? So, the very first word which you see is qul. And this itself has a lot of meaning behind it, okay? The first thing is that it indicates that Prophet Muhammad is an apostle. Okay, he's a messenger on behalf of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is his command to do it, okay? He is the intermediate between Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to us. Does that make sense? Yes? Right. And it's also a command for you to internalize this message and to spread it. Yeah? And to spread it. Now, here's a question for everyone here. Do you think this only applies to the Prophet Muhammad? No, it applies to all of us. So once we know this, it is our duty to spread this message. Qul. Yeah? Simple as that. Anybody questions? No. Okay. Now the next thing I wanted to focus on is who Allah. He is Allah, okay? Now, understand the situation in Mecca, okay? This was a society that thrived upon polytheism and tons of shirk, okay? And I told you before, they used to make idols based of gold, iron, copper, and all these basic materials they'd find around, yeah? And they had about 360 idols in Mecca. 360 idols. And they all called these idols ilah. They all called them ilah, right? But they also believed in Allah. And if you ask them who Allah was, they'd say Allah, no problem, okay? Even the Kaaba, it wasn't called Bayt Ilah, the house of these idols. They called it Bayt Allah. They called it Bayt Allah. So this name Allah, this concept of Allah wasn't new to them. This was something that was already ingrained in them. They already knew about this. It's just that they committed shirk by associating partners with Him. Yeah? Does that make sense? So, what the whole point of this is, just to mention another surah, it says, if you ask them who has created them, they will surely say Allah. And this is in Surah Zukhruf, verse 87. Okay, and there are many other surahs which will say the same thing, where if you ask them, they'll say Allah, right? Now, just to combine these two, who are Allah? The point I'm trying to make is that the Prophet ﷺ wasn't introducing a new concept to them. He was introducing something, and then with just the correct limit which they had to understand. Who Allah? He is Allah. Does that make sense to everyone? Yeah? He was just trying to correct that initial impression on them. So the same God you acknowledge as your creator, pretty much, yeah? Then we go on to this specific word, ahad. Now ahad is a very, very unique word, and we need to understand some of the context around it, yeah? In English translations, you'll just see this translate as one. Okay, it's usually translated as one, but there is actually a lot more specific meaning behind it that's only explicit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We'll understand why, okay? So this was used in 5 instances. The word ahad in that culture, in that economy at that time, was used in 5 instances. It was used as a possessive case. So they would say, Yawm al-Ahad, Yawm al-Ahad, the first day of the week. Okay, that's how you translate the first day of the week, right? It can also mean to indicate total negative. Ma'ajani ana ahadun. No one has come to me. Yeah, no one has come to me. I'm just explaining the clauses when it was used. Yeah. The third, when it was used as a common question. Hal in andaka ahadun? Is there anyone with you? Okay, I'm just explaining just the background about it. The conditional clause, that's another one which it was used. In ja'aka ahadun, if someone comes to you, that's a clause statement it was used for. And finally, as counting, yani ahad, ithnain, ahad ashar, 1, 2, 11, these sort of things. So these are the only times it was used in, right? In their language and in their context. Does that make sense? Yeah. Now, when the Quran came down, it also made a mold on this specific word used only explicitly for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? So this is a word that they didn't use for anything. This was never associated to any person, nor was it associated to any item. And the Quran, after its revelation, took this word for the explicit connotation to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Does that make sense? Yeah? So, now we look at the meaning of ahad. What does it actually mean? So it means, there's actually a huge list if you actually go into some of the definitions behind it. So it means He alone is the sustainer. Providing all the goods that we have, the blessings that come from Him. He is the creator alone and no one can associate with Him. The fundamental concept, okay? He was, is, will be Allah alone. There is no God other than Him. Yeah, that's part of this definition. There was no God before Him or after Him. And He does not belong to a race of gods because they thought, everyone had an interconnected network like these polytheistic images that they had. And no one is equal in rank to Him. No one is equal to Him, yeah? He is ahad and not wahid. So now this is the difference I'm trying to lead to. The difference between ahad and wahid. In the common term today, wahid means one. Okay? And if you look at the translation of ahad, it also means one. So you want to try and distinguish what is the difference between these two, yeah? The thing is, okay, let's say in English, okay? If you say one man, one nation, okay? And by one nation, you're just applying a, just like what's it called? A metaphoric explanation. So you're just pretty much generalizing man, one nation, one country, yes? Within this saying of one man or one country, you're including a lot of people, right? Okay? This difference is what is explained between ahad and wahid. This is explained here. And the point is that ahad has no plurality behind it. Has no plurality behind it. Like one man or one country. Does that make sense to everyone? Brothers, sisters at the back? Does that make sense, yeah? Okay. And furthermore, because they thought that their gods could be made out of these raw materials, right? The word ahad also implies that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cannot be divided. It is something that cannot be divided. It is not divisible. Does that make sense to everyone? Yeah? And another thing is that it's not analyzable. Yani your limited mind cannot comprehend Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Simply put, right? We all live in a finite system. Everyone understand that concept? We all live in a finite system. If we know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is infinite, can we ever have an infinite thing in a practical system, in a finite system? No, of course not. And this is stupidity. So this is what you have to understand, that He is not analyzable. We just take it for whatever He's described to us as. Khalas. Yeah? And He's not contained nor attached to anything. No, He's not contained or attached to anything. This all comes under the definition of ahad. Is everyone cool with that concept? Yeah? Right. And so so I just want to point out that wahid was never ever used and is never used in the Quran alone. Right? Wahid is never ever used. It's always attached to something else. Wahid is something, whatever. But it is never used alone to describe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Does that make sense to everyone? Yeah? Yeah? Brothers, sisters? Any concept? Any questions? Okay, perfect. So that's the distinction between ahad and wahid. Make sense? Khalas. Okay. So just to summarize, ahad means He's beyond composition. He cannot be decomposed into anything. He has no plurality. He has no resemblance. He's not composed of any specific elements, nor does He have any partner. So shirk is cut off immediately after this point. Does that make sense? Yeah? Khalas. So does everyone understand this first sentence? قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ. Yeah? Khalas. Now we look at the word Allah as-Samad, specifically as-Samad. Yeah? Now again, as-Samad actually has a lot of different meanings. And if you look at some of the tafsirs, they have different narrations from different companions, and they all have their own slight interpretation here and there. But I just chose the best one, the strongest one out of it. I'm just going to say it now. So the one that I chose was, it says, the chief who has no superior and to whom the people turn for their desires and needs. Thus all people depend on him, but he does not depend on anyone. He does not depend on anyone. That's the key point which I want people to take, right? He is the ultimate chief, okay? He is the ultimate chief. If you had a leader, right, okay, a human leader, people rely on him to some extent. But can they rely on him for all his emotional needs, all the food, sustenance, everything? No. He is only Samad to some extent. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is as-Samad. See the alif lam? Alif lam. Now you remember the words I asked you to mention before about Allah's names. What do you say? Al-Hakim, Ar-Rahman, what was the other three? Ar-Rahim. All of these have alif lam. Alif lam. The, yani the definite. Yes? Now the distinction I want you to see here is Ahad has no al, whereas As-Samad has al. Okay? And this is a very important concept. The reason why As-Samad has alif lam is because Samad can be applied to human terms. Okay? So As-Samad. Yeah, the definition is pretty much the chief who has no superior and to whom the people turn for their desires and needs, okay? And thus all people depend on him, but he does not depend on anyone. Okay? Right? Does that make sense? He is as-Samad. This is the definition of as-Samad with the alif lam. Now Samad can be applied to Allah. Like for example, a leader, yeah? A leader. When he is in charge of a group of people, but he is only Samad to some extent. Can he look after their emotional needs? Can he look after their food? No, of course not. And he obviously has his own life, he has other things to do. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the control of everything in your life. He is the one who provides everything. And you are in total dependence on him, whether you like it, you know it or not. Yeah? Does that make understanding? Yeah. And the reason why alif lam is not here is because this, I told you, the Quran introduced this concept of ahad only for the explicit connotation to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. Cool. Just wanted to mention that. All right. Bismillah. So, and then we have this concept of lam yalid wa lam yulad, right? So here we say Allah is one, explicitly just one. And he is a chieftain to everyone depends on, but he does not need to depend on anyone. Yeah? Then we talk about lam yalid wa lam yulad. Now, again, remember in those times, they had this huge misunderstanding that people, the gods can have kids or they have wives and these sort of interconnections basically, right? So they had a whole network of a species of God. Species of gods around them, and they got married and they procreated, and they obviously had children, or they had orphans around them who they would adopt, and these orphans would then look after them. The same as a concept of a mortal man. The same concept as a mortal man. They honestly believed these were gods. So even though Ahad cuts this off, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala exclusively pointed this out to tell them that he does not have anyone. He was not a son from anyone, nor does he have any sons. And this is more, if you think about the Christian concept, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, and all these, and this doesn't make sense to me. The most logical conclusion that Allah is one. Allah is one, okay? He does not have any son, and he doesn't need to create any son for him to pass on his lineage, because he is infinite. He is all living. Time is not a variable to him. Time is a variable for us. Yes? Does that make sense to everyone? Yeah? Khalas. Okay, right. There's a verse in Surah Al-Mu'minun. Allah has no offspring, and there is no other deity as a partner with him. And this is Al-Mu'minun. Yeah, Sister Amna?
I was just going to say, would you think that line is also revealed for the Christians and not just polytheists?
Sorry, I don't know about that. To be honest, I don't know about that. I do know this whole thing was to cut off Shirk 101 to everyone. Whether you were polytheist, whether you believed in God, or whether you didn't believe in God, all these things were there to cut off. But I think this was specifically for the people who asked about the ancestry. Because remember when I said the cause of the revelation was one of the hadith, it says, what is the ancestry of your Lord? This was the questions they asked. And thus the surah was revealed. So I think this is specifically meant for those people, and I think the Christians might come under this. Allahu alam, I don't know.
The question asked by
So I think it says here it says Jews, but also the Quraysh asked this question: what is the ancestry of your Lord? Yeah. So and I don't know Quraysh whether there was a mix at that time. There was you had these people, you had that people, you had Yehudis. Allah alam, I don't know. But yeah, that may be interpreted. This is maybe specific to Christians. Allah alam, I don't know the specific answer to that. Does that make sense to everyone? Yeah. So He's one. He is all-bearing, and we rely on Him, and He does not rely on anyone. And then finally, He bears no children. Okay, nor is He a child of anyone. Yes? Khalas. And then وَلَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُ كُفُوًا أَحَدٌ. Now, I want to focus on this word, and this is actually a very interesting word when I read the tafsir of it, okay? So kufu actually means no one equal in that position. Okay? No one is equal in that position. And it also means, what's it called? Your opposition in battle. You know when you have fierce rivalry between two countries and these are like superpowers and you have that battle, okay? So it's also applied in that context as well. And ironically, it also applies to marriage. It applies to marriage. Someone who you're married to, you're equal in stance to. So I thought this was quite funny. This also applied to your enemy in war and also your wife or your husband in marriage. So subhanallah. Okay. So once we take all this, okay, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about His oneness. He compares that He is the ultimate chief. There's no one greater than Him, and you are in His mercy. You rely on Him whether you like it or not. Then He says that exclusively, He says, I don't have any children, nor am I the child of anyone. And there's no one equal to my stance. No one who's equal to my stance, sorry. Does that make sense? Yeah? So all the arguments are completely diminished through this. All the arguments are completely diminished through this. And if you look at, if I really recommend, if you go through the tafsir by Nouman Ali Khan and Imam Suhaib Webb, they go through much more detail with regards to the linguistic analysis and everything, and it adds a lot more depth to it. So I highly recommend that. Now, what I wanted to continue on was that these were the sort of people that existed at that time. You had atheism, some people who didn't even believe in God, okay? You had some people who believed in God's existence, but didn't think thought it was unnecessary. Thought it was unnecessary, and he's just there, okay, but what's the point of Him? Some people thought that God existed, He was necessary, but they denied in His perfection. They denied His perfection, yeah? If you look at some of the Greek idols today, these Zeus and everything, these are gods apparently, but if you don't make dua to them, apparently they become mortal and they can be killed. So what kind of stupidity is wallahi, and it's stupid. And then you have polytheism, belief in multiple gods, okay? Lineage and progeny, okay? They believe that, God, okay, fine, He's perfect, etc., but He has the capability of having a son or being a son, yeah? And finally, no one is equal in status. These are the the 6 groups which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala completely rejects just through these verses. Does that make sense to everyone? Right, okay. Now, this is where the interesting part comes. I just wanted to quickly go over the tafsir of Surah Al-Ikhlaas because it's very simple, very easy for us to digest, especially because everyone here has gone through it so many times, it becomes a part of your heart, inshallah. But the reason, this is the main important parts which I want you to now focus on, okay? So, Tawheed, what is Tawheed? The scholars, just for the sake of clarity, they've divided Tawheed into 3 main parts. Can anybody guess what those are? For 2 candies. Yeah, sister at the back? Okay. Sorry? Yeah, Tawheed Rububiyyah? Uluhiyyah? Asma wa Sifat. Excellent. Oh, sorry, that's a very bad throw. Sorry, okay, yeah. So the sister, mashallah, she said correct. Tawheed al-Rububiyyah, Tawheed Uluhiyyah, and Tawheed al-Asma wa Sifat. Now this is, please understand, this is just something which the scholars did just to clarify it for people. Ultimately we believe in this, okay, but it can be divided into 3 different categories. There are other different types of categorization, but this is the most common understanding. Does that make sense to everyone? And we'll understand what each one is, okay? Now, listen up. Tawheed al-Rububiyyah. What is Tawheed al-Rububiyyah? The belief in the oneness of Allah concerning His actions, such as His being the sole creator and the only one who nourishes and sustains the creation. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay? I'll say that again. The belief in the oneness of Allah concerning His actions, such as His being the sole creator and the only one who nourishes and sustains the creation. Okay? Does everyone understand that concept? Yeah? Okay. Tawheed al-Uluhiyyah. What is Tawheed al-Uluhiyyah? This means that all acts of worship must be directed towards Allah and Allah alone, as He is the only one worthy and deserving of worship. Does that make sense? Do you understand the distinction between the two? Asim, you seem unsure.
You can clarify in a second.
Okay, yeah.
Summarize.
Okay, inshallah, don't worry. Okay, right, okay. And then Tawheed Asma wa Sifat. This implies believing, okay, please listen to this, is very, very important, this one, okay? This implies believing in all of the names and attributes of Allah as memorized in the Quran and authentic Hadith, as being unique to Him without negating them, stripping them of any meaning, distorting their meaning, understanding them in an anthropomorphic manner sense, or interpreting them figuratively. Okay? I'll explain what these are in a second, inshallah. So just to explain to you, the distinction between these three. Take Surah Fatiha for instance, okay? Just take Surah Fatiha. This is a little exercise we're going to do. Tawheed al-Rububiyyah focuses around the concept of oneness of Allah, the Lordship. That He is the ultimate Lord, the one Lord. Okay? So Surah Fatiha, Maliki Yawmiddin. Is this Tawheed Rububiyyah, Uluhiyyah, or Asma wa Sifat? Huh? Rububiyyah, because it declares the ultimate Lordship. This is the Lord of the Akhirah. This is the Lord. Okay? Alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen. Is it Rububiyyah or Uluhiyyah? Huh? Rububiyyah. It's Rububiyyah. Huh? Yeah, it's Rabb, because of the Rabb. Okay? It's belief in the Lordship of Allah. The Lordship of Allah. Don't worry, the distinction makes it clear. The second example, Uluhiyyah. In Surah Fatiha, إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينَ. You alone we worship and you alone we seek for help. So which one is this? Uluhiyyah. Simple. Okay? So it's the statements regarding that He is the only one who deserves worship. Does that make sense? Simple as that. So you now see the distinction between the first and the second one? Yeah? Third one, Asma wa Sifat. These are all the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So like you mentioned, Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim, Al-Hakim. Yeah? Does that make sense to everyone? Does that mean you look confused? Anybody confused? Please raise your hand. These are very... Okay, yes, Sister Rami, what is so confusing?
The difference between the first one and the second one.
Okay, so Tawheed al-Rububiyyah focuses around the centrality point that Allah is the only one who deserves Lordship. Only one. This specific Tawheed, this specific form of Tawheed, focuses around the point that He is the only one who deserves of worship. Do you see the distinction? Lordship, believing in the oneness of God. Worship, believing that all actions of worship must go to Him. Yeah? So if you look at Surah Fatiha for instance, okay, the concept of Maliki Yawmiddin. Malik, you know in Surah Fatiha, Maliki Yawmiddin, Master of the Day of Judgment. Which one is that? Uluhiyyah or Rububiyyah? Yeah, Rububiyyah. Look at the other sentence, إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينَ. You alone we worship, you alone we worship and you alone we seek for help. Which one is this? Rububiyyah or Uluhiyyah? Yeah, Uluhiyyah. Very simple, and it's a very simple concept. It's not confusing or anything. So, does everyone understand Tawheed? Okay, the three different classifications of Tawheed, inshallah. Now, I want to actually point out a very important way to, inshallah, a method which you can stay away from shirk, because some people can get very confused with regards to the application of Allah's names to people and people to Allah, etc, etc, etc. Okay, take the, the name Ar-Rahman, okay, the most merciful, okay, let's say that. Now, you see some people with the name Abdul Rahman, etc, etc. Can somebody call Ar-Rahman? Can you call this person Ar-Rahman, etc? This is what we want to clarify here, okay? So, the first question you ask yourself, is this attribute time limited? Okay? The attribute time limited. Like for example, our mercy, okay, exists as long as we are alive. Correct? Ar-Rahman, yeah? Our mercy exists as long as we are alive. From the time we are born until the time of death. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when does His mercy diminish? Never. Why? Because He's all existing. He's existed since whatever. Yes? Does that make sense? Second question, is this attribute capably limited? Is our mercy so much that everyone, encounters from it, everyone benefits from it? The plants, the leaves, everything. Yes. Huh? What? No. How is our mercy applied to plants in our huh? Allah's mercy, yeah, Allah's mercy. Allah's mercy applies to absolutely everything. Absolutely everything. But our mercy is limited. And we get angry sometimes, yeah? How can we be merciful when we're angry? Yeah, it creates a lot of fitna between people. And the final thing you understand, who gave you this attribute? Who gave you this attribute? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave you this attribute, right? But who gave Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala this attribute? No one, because it's His. It's His. Does that make sense? The reason why I want you to learn these three questions is you can understand the difference between the creator and the creation.
When we do name our children,
Yeah.
one of the 99 names of Allah, because there's obviously 99. If we do name our children one of those names,
Yeah.
is that wrong?
No, you can say Abdurrahman, like for example, Abdurrahman, Abdullah. Allah is there, but Abdullah. You always add Abdul. That's my
I
point.
think she's asking if you name your child something like Allah is Al-Kareem.
Yeah.
If you name your child Kareem.
Yeah, Kareem, yeah. Yeah, I mean, like, see, that's the thing. That's another misconception, yeah. Because you remove the Alif Lam. Alif Lam makes it definite. That's the point. The Alif Lam belongs to Allah. So, Al-Hakim, Al-Rahim, all these things, they all have Alif Lam. But Kareem, you see some people with the name Kareem. Our Masri brother, mashallah, who was here a couple of months ago, Kareem, he was named Kareem, yeah? So this applies, except for some of the words like Ahad. Yeah, some names you cannot apply. For example, Ahad, you cannot call someone Ahad, that's impossible. You cannot call someone Allah, obviously this is, yes, huh? Sorry?
Ar-Rahman also, you can't call someone.
Yeah, you cannot call also, yeah, because it's the most merciful, you cannot call, yes, Sister Shaida? Okay, so you didn't, okay.
What name was that you can't call?
Sorry?
What name?
The ones which you can't call Ahad, Allah, and the Ar-Rahman was another one I remember. There's a few which you cannot, and there's a reason why. I would advise you to look into this.
Can you not say Abdullah anymore then?
Yeah, you can say Abdurrahim. Yeah, you can say, as long as you attach the Abdul.
I've seen some people, names Rahman.
Huh?
It's Rahman. I've seen many people.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because there's...
Rahman.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, and this is another debate, inshallah, and you can ask a Mufti. Okay, I'm not a Mufti here, but I just wanted to bring this concept, understanding the difference between creator and creation. I think this is a very fundamental concept which we tend to get misguided by sometimes. Yeah. So everyone understand this? Yes, Sister Wada?
When I went to the valleys of the Sikha,
Yeah.
held by Allah, course, we can name our children with the 99 names of Allah, except 2 names.
Which one? Allah. Allah and Ar-Rahman.
Put Abdul before that. For example, Abdullah,
Yeah.
Abdurrahman, but the other names of Allah, if you don't want to put Abdul, it's
Okay, that's perfect. That makes sense. Okay, alhamdulillah, very good, excellent. So does that make sense to everyone? Yeah. Anur? The sister said the only tunes you cannot have are Rahman and Allah. You cannot have, but as long as you put Abdul in front of everything, you can name them. That's it. Yeah, simple concept. Khalas. Okay. Now, one of the things that I wanted to this is actually the most important thing which I want people to. Yes, sister. Okay, yeah. If they work, this one isn't working. Oh, excellent. Okay. Inshallah. No problem. Okay, so now I want everyone to really pay attention to this concept, okay? Because this is actually very, very important, and it's actually a threat to our understanding of Tawheed and our understanding of Islam and Allah, okay? I want people to really pay attention, inshallah. So the first thing I want to talk about, this is actually, this model I've made is called the atheism creep. I want people to understand this, all right? So the first pillar I want to talk about is modern science. Okay, now alhamdulillah, science has really elevated Islam to a very high level. Okay, there have been many scholars, many people who've actually created the foundations for which many of our technology exists today. Many of them, right? However, we have now turned the society into believing that science is all about whatever we can see, whatever we can feel, whatever we can touch. Anything that we cannot see, or anything that cannot be quantified, we don't believe in. Okay? We don't believe in. So what they've actually done, they've only reduced animals, they've reduced humans to animals. They don't believe in Allah, they don't believe in faith. They don't have anything concept of faith. Whatever you see is what you believe. This is how science has turned itself into. Okay? Now, what the thing I want to point out is that when you have a society living on this sort of mechanism, what you see is what you believe, what you quantify is that's it, there's nothing more than that. You actually start to cut off faith from the society, or from the way science is approached. So if you look at psychology, for instance, yeah, they're trying to understand what is a character, what is personality. They're only doing that based on what they see. They're only doing that based on what they see. But they don't understand the concept of a fitra or of a nafs, which you cannot see, you cannot quantify it. Yeah? Does that make sense to everyone? Yeah? Now, I want to mention a little flip side about science in Islam as well. Science itself is very empirical and theoretical in nature. It's very theoretical, and it's based on the best postulation. So this is the best theory. 50 years later, there's another theory. So it's based on theories, okay? Not al-haq, not fact. So not the truth. People keep on building theories for better improvement. 100 years ago, we had the Newtonian physics. After that, Einstein came in, demolished that, and came up with general relativity. It changed. Now that is the best theory. Does that make sense? It's based on postulation. Now, what some people try and do with regards to this is that Quran, okay, there's a flexibility with regards to its interpretation. Sometimes, because there's a huge list of things which you can derive from one word because of the many contexts and dialects that was evolved in. And some people, what they do is that, say for example, you have two competing theories for one specific thing, like black holes for instance, yeah? And one theory says this and one theory says this. When one theory dominates the other, they change the meaning and say, oh, the Quran says this. And then when the other theory wins, they say, no, the Quran says this. This is actually a very dangerous game to play with the Quran, because you can misrepresent the Quran through this. Okay? I want people to understand this concept that it actually should be the Quran says this, and whatever science says, khalas, take this. Quran should not be at the mercy of science. Science should be at the mercy of the Quran. Does that make sense to everyone? Yeah? Because Quran is al-haq. Quran is al-haq. Yeah, that's the truth. We know that is the truth because we believe in that's the truth. And yes, there are some scientific components which can be proven, like the embryology, some of the things of time, and the bee and all these sort of things. But it shouldn't be at the mercy of science. Science should be at the mercy of the Quran. And another very, very scary, this is a very scary thing which I found out about the Quran, is that some people overexert themselves in things which should not be exerted upon the Quran. For instance, I read this article, one man, he took all the letters in the Quran, divided them by some numbers and came up with the speed of light, for instance. And this is now really taking it to a very dangerous level. This should not happen, okay? Don't look for things that are not there. We know the Quran is the truth, and we can teach it to whatever it tells us. But do not try and develop things which are not there, or try and do these fancy things. Does that make sense to everyone? Yeah? Understanding where in science and Islam fit together. We have one stance, okay, and that's it. But taking it further and beyond that can be dangerous to play. Yeah? Because understand the Quran is not a science book. If you strip the Quran down just to science, you've actually humiliated it. Quran is a book of beauty. It has legislations. It's a book of arts. The language, the poetry, the tajweed, the oratory, all these things have been studied. It's a book of history. We know so much about, where Noah's boat is mentioned in the Quran, about all these caves, Surah Al-Kahf, all the people, the mindset. It's a book of sociology, of psychology, geography, archaeology. All these things are there. We have to look at the Quran through a holistic perspective. Don't just narrow it down to science. If you think of it only through science, science is a field which cannot prove itself. Does that make sense to everyone? Yeah? Any questions with regards to this? Okay. Sisters? Okay. Yeah? No one? Okay, khalas. The second thing which I want to talk about is the society, an apathetic society. If you look at nowadays, urban societies are called the cold societies. And I'll tell you why. There was a case study where there was a murder in the streets of New York. And what happened was this murder was witnessed by 34 of the neighbors around. But not one of them picked up the phone to call security. Not one of them. Okay, and it started a whole new tantrum of, we've become such a cold society, we're just driven by our current needs and desires. Think about society today. We're driven, get good grades, go to university, go to work, get married, all these immediate short-term goals. This is how we've been structured in our minds. And then where's Islam? Islam is somewhere at the back in the bookshelf rotting with dust. You see how society has molded itself where Islam itself is not a priority anymore. The dunya has become our priority. And I wanted to bring your focus in understanding, look at how the Quraysh lived, yeah? The Quraysh lived in a society where they grew their own food, the crops they had. They saw the miracle of these things come out of the ground. They killed the animals for their own food. And you look at how they lived at night and day. They experienced the sun for what it was. They experienced the night for what it was. They lived in tents outside in the full-baked desert. Whereas we live in concrete boxes. And what we've done, we've discorded ourselves from nature. Look at where our food comes from. We don't even know. We don't even know where our food comes from. It's all processed. And when you have such a society thinking like this, you've actually disconnected yourself from the attunement of the nature of Allah. Because these are constant miracles around us. Look at today. SubhanAllah, look at today. All this greenery, the sunlight. Yeah, we don't appreciate it when we're in box rooms and houses. Our priorities have shifted. And as a result, we've become really apathetic. and materialistic. Always looking out for what we want, what we have, measuring our success by our wealth, our status, our family, our lineage. And this is wrong. Does everyone understand this concept? Okay, I'm getting to a point, don't worry, this is getting to a point, inshallah. But are there any questions about this? No, okay. The final thing I want to talk about is human law. Okay, and we actually have a lawyer at the back, so she can tell me if this is right or wrong. Now, has anybody here called chaos theory? Something called chaos theory. Excellent, Hamad, okay. This is actually a very geeky physics thing, okay. Chaos theory is pretty much saying that, say for example, you have a constant function. If you change the initial conditions just by a bit, you will get total chaos in the motion, future motion, total chaos. Now, if you look at history, just look at history, okay. When the prophets, they came, they stabilized everything. As soon as deviation started with regards to thoughts of shirk, etc., everything went to chaos. And then another prophet came, and it stabilized, and then everything went to chaos. Again and again, this system. Do you see this? As soon as you deviate from the code of conduct of Tawheed, you go into chaos. Now look at man-made law today, okay? The Prophet ﷺ introduced the concept of Islam and built upon its establishment 1400 years ago. Right? And since then, how much have we deviated from Islam? Quite a lot, right? Let me give you some very interesting concepts. 50 years ago, homosexuality was completely off the books, yeah? Like you'd be killed immediately or something like that. Now, you're celebrated for being gay. You're celebrated for being gay. Now, if you look maybe 50 years down the line, maybe there may be a law now where the pedophilia might be accepted. Do you see this? If we start building law upon human motives and desires, we're actually leading ourselves to ultimate chaos. And these are signs of the day of judgment coming up in front of us. These are signs of the day of judgment coming up in front of us. Does everyone understand this concept of human law? Yeah? Now, from the last class, which are the two gates which I talked about of shaitan? For 2 candidates, inshallah. Yes, Sister Amina? Well done, excellent. Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry. Okay, so that was a very bad shot. Okay, so doubts and desires, okay? And now look how this all fits into this circle. The first thing, if you look at the overlap between modern science and human law, right? Once you've taken God out of the picture, what you see is what you believe, right? And if you don't have that foundation of God, law is going to be constructed on what they think is next best, humans themselves. Does that make sense to everyone? Yeah? Doubt in God. Doubt in God. Everyone clear with that point? Yeah? Second thing, if you have modern science and you have overlap with the apathetic society, if they don't even believe in God, do you think they're going to have faith in something called the hereafter, the afterlife, or the prophets? No. And their whole faith becomes corrupted, and as a result, their deen becomes the dunya. Yeah? And finally, now look at this. The overlap of an apathetic society with human law. What is driving human law today? What is driving human society today? The overlap is desires of man. I want more money. I want more women. I want more kids. I want better lineage. I want status. I want power. These are desires of men. Now, if you overlap these 3 things, doubt, and desire. If you overlap these 3 things, you get atheism. You get atheism. And the reason why I want to show you this model is because we're living in a society, we're living in such a society where the thriving product is atheism. That's how sociology has shaped itself today. Think about it. Modern science, thinking only what you see is what you believe. Completely rid of faith. Law is now being made by men. They've completely forgotten and overlooked on the books of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Apathetic society driven by desire and greed. So, and then thinking about discorded from nature whatsoever. All these overlaps are leading to atheism. And the reason why I wanted to mention is because you can get something called atheism creep. And I am susceptible to this as well. When I first started off Islam, when I left my Jahiliyyah days, I came into Islam thinking that everything in Islam could be rationalized. Everything in Islam could be rationalized. Right? But look at the 6 articles of faith. What are the 6 articles of faith? We went through this last week, honestly. No one remembers. Hamad.
Believe in Allah, His prophets, the revealed books, the angels,
Yeah.
the afterlife, and the final
And the what?
Uh,
Qadar. You forgot Qadar. Well, I'll give you candy anyways. Well done. Okay, how many of these can you see or rationalize? Except for the Quran. How many of these can you see or rationalize? You cannot. So this for me was a very difficult concept because I come from a scientific background, right? And more importantly, I always wanted whatever was the new thing, the iPad, the newest games, etc. I completely forgot about Islam. And when that creeps into your mind, deen doesn't become important. What's there becomes important to you. Immediate success. And there's a very famous quote, and I keep saying this again and again to everyone. John C. Maxwell is a self-help author. He said, those who have lost the goal, the ultimate goal, are slaves to the immediate. And look at this today. This is so true today. So true today. People just want these immediate goals. They've completely forgotten about the concept of akhirah. And some, my point is that you could have these thoughts or doubts, even youth today, because of any of these three channels. So I wanted you to be aware of this. So inshallah, it doesn't help you, it helps you against the concept of shirk. And if these people have created a society where the only thriving product is atheism. Does that make sense to everyone? Does anyone have any questions about this? Yeah? Or does anyone disagree with this concept? This is according to my own research after reading a lot on this sort of thing. Wow, I want to know what is it that's creating atheism. Atheism is a culture that was never existed. You look at history today, everything had some form of God, whether the sun, whether there's a statue and anything. But it's only now, today, we have atheism living. Where is this atheism coming from? So when I looked around, this is what I found from my own. Yes, Sister Amna?
I think one big thing that, if you read Richard Dawkins,
Yeah.
he basically says that, he proclaims atheism because of the ills of religion,
Yeah.
and the fact that religion is the creator of war, creator of all these deaths in the world, and essentially the problem of evil as well.
Yeah.
How does that relate to you?
That fits in science. The thing is, once you think about it, once you have a doubt in faith, right? These people, they've said that evil comes from what's it called? Allah, right? Okay? But evil only comes from man. We know this from the Quran. You are the ones who create your own evil. You are the ones. See, the point is that they don't have this construction of faith within them. And this is what distinguishes us from them. We believe in something we can't see in. Right? Hamad just put it excellently, those 6 articles of faith. So this is what differs us from them. Does that make sense? Yeah? Khalas. Okay, so I just want to quote Dr. Justin Barrett. He's a senior researcher at University of Oxford. He said at a talk show, the preponderance of scientific evidence for the past 10 years or so has shown that a lot more seems to be built into the natural development of children's minds than we once thought, including a predisposition to see the natural world as designed and purposeful, that some kind of intelligent being is behind that purpose. This is a study done over a period of 10 years. And I don't know how old this study is. But if you look at now, atheism is actually spreading a lot faster than Islam is. So the reason why I wanted to point out atheism concepts to you, so that you can understand and stay away from this atheism creep model. Does everyone understand this? Yeah? So I'm saying this was just one specific study against many of the studies which say this is completely wrong, this is completely in shackles. I just wanted to point this out. Finally, I just wanted to go over something called the Go-Rap model. Who remembers the Go-Rap model? Put your hands up. Okay, yeah, completely. 2 of the students are here pretty much. It's called God's Oneness, Revelation and Prophethood. This is a Dawah power training course that was done by Hamza sources through Kauthar. And the first 2 concepts are God, understanding that there is a creator, and then God's oneness. And I want to just quickly go over this so you can understand, inshallah, how to protect yourself believing from other things that can lead you to shirk. Yeah? So the first thing that to prove a creator, literally this is a very logical argument, okay? If you think about where did the creation come from? Where did this universe come from? There are only 3 possible explanations. Either it came from nothing, either it created itself, or there was a creator. And we'll go through each one. So some people say that it came from nothing. If you look at logical things today, can you create a burger without the bun or the beef? No. Of course not. It has individual parts to make it up, right? Can you have a juice without a fruit? No, you need to squeeze the fruit and you put it together, right? It has to come from nothing. It has to come from something. And more importantly, some people say it's by chance. And if everything was by chance, why don't you grow an extra arm overnight? Why isn't there a plane at your background overnight? It's very simple logical arguments, by chance. Does that make sense to everyone? Yeah? The concept of created itself. This is equivalent to saying or asking, can your mother create herself? Can your mother create herself? Of course not. What a stupid concept. What a stupid concept. So if you create a watch, can that watch create itself? Of course not. It cannot create itself. So the only logical conclusion is that there is a creator. There is a creator. And if you think about it, right? If you think about it, whenever you buy a new product, a watch or a clock or something, you always have a little white book called a manual, right? You always have that. What is the manual of humans today? What is the manual of humans today? Quran. Quran. Yeah, Muslims. Okay, no, this is a book for mankind. Yeah, it's a book for everyone to read over, to read upon. Yeah. So the only concept is that Quran is a creator, is the ultimate necessity. Then we talk about proving. So we've concluded that there is a creator, but now we're trying to say this creator is one. This creator is one, not multidimensional. The first thing is that understanding the concept of a God. A God is supposed to be unique. There's nothing like him. A God is immortal, right? Whereas men are immortal. God is supposed to be all-sustaining, whereas men, they're not sustaining for everything. They can only provide limited things. So understand that there's a clear division between a creator and a creation. The second thing, polytheism. Look at the two biggest polytheistic religions today. You have the Greek methodology, Greece. What's it called? Is there a specific name for it? No, like polytheism for Hindus is called Hinduism, whatever. Anyways, you look at Greece and you look at Hinduism, right? They've got an aspect of multi-dimensional gods, polytheism, right? Do you ever see peace between these? If you look at stories, they're all fighting with each other. This god is fighting with that. The Brahmin is fighting with the Krishna. Krishna is fighting with the god of I don't know what they're called. And then you have Zeus who fights with this brother and Hades fights with him. There's no sense of peace in this. Can this be God? Can this be God? Can polytheism really be the case? Really, and logically, can that be the case? And another thing is, if you had, let's say for instance, you had multiple gods, then does that make God unique? Of course not. The concept of God is that He's unique, He's one. Okay? And that doesn't exist in polytheistic religions. Does that make sense? So logically and rationally, you just prove to them that this is our concept, oneness of God. Khalas, ala tul, that's it. Does that make sense, everyone? Yeah? Any questions? No? Right. Right, just to conclude off, inshallah, God is one and He is unique. Inshallah, we learn that through Tafsir. Tawheed is the fundamental concept of Islam. And the reason why it is very, very important is because this is now the starting point, right, for you to start developing yourself in your nafs. How to purify your nafs. And the first and the most important thing is to correct your belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the next step, alhamdulillah, now you have a good foundation in Tawheed. Now the next step is to know about the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Know who Allah is. Know who He is. And there's actually a beautiful book written by Salih ibn Uthaymeen, and it's called Allah and His Attributes. And it talks about the 99 names, the rules and regulations around these names according to Quran and Sunnah, nothing else. Okay, very beautiful book, and it goes through everything. There are three divisions of Tawheed: Al-Rububiyyah, the right to lordship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala; Al-Uluhiyyah, the Rububiyyah, the right to lordship; Uluhiyyah, right to worship; and Asma wa Sifat, the names and attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yeah? Final thing, clarify misconceptions about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's perfection and the distinction between creator and creation. Just ask yourself those three questions. Time limited, capable limited, who gave you these attributes? Avoid the atheism creep. Understand that we're living in a society today where the faith has been completely demolished. Shirk has been cut off from the grassroots. So we need to be firm upon our deen, and we need to be careful when we deal in such a society. Yeah? And finally, proving creator and the oneness using the gold wrap method. Just the first two parts, inshallah. Alright, the reference I used were the meaning of the Quran, Maariful, Tafsir of Kathir, in the Shades of Quran by Sayyid Qutb, commentary on the 40 Hadith by Jamaal Zarabozo, Influence the Psychology of Persuasion by Cialdini, and Approach to Quranic Sciences by Mufti Taqi Usmani, Purification of the Soul by Sheikh Jamaal Zarabozo, Dawaa Power, Kauthar notes, this article online, it's called Children Are Born Believers in God, Academic Claims, and Tafsir of Surah Al-Ikhlaas video by Nouman Ali Khan, inshallah. Does anybody have any questions? Yeah? Anything? No? Okay. So subhanakallah wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.